London's burning. That was the headline that went around the world when for several nights in August the British capital and several other big cities descended into chaos and fear. Exactly 1 year on, London hosted the glittering spectacle of the Olympic Games, which have been praised for their friendliness. So, were the rioters just a blip? A random outpouring of anger sustained for nights on end by the lure of opportunistic looting? Or were they more deeply rooted than that? Did they in fact have a political edge? Could chaos come again to the capital? To answer that, we must understand what happened and why. Whatever the underlying causes of the riots, there is no doubt as to what the trigger was. On Thursday the 4th of August 2011, armed police stopped a minicab to arrest Tottenham resident Mark Duggan. Exactly what happened next is still unclear, even 1 year on. But shots were fired, and Mark Duggan wound up dead. David Akinsanya lives a stone's throw from where Mark Duggan died, and was quickly on the scene.
Well, I saw the helicopter land, rushed over there with my camera, and it wasn't quite cordoned off then. The police were standing in places trying to keep people back off of the rise of the bridge. And I was sort of craning my neck trying to get photographs, chatting to a few people who were there. And I got chatting to one guy who said to me, he heard 4 shots, he heard lots of shouting, and then he heard 4 shots. I actually had an errand to run, so I went off and came back and then took more photographs because the road was still closed. And by this time there was a cordon up, and all I could see was the vehicle surrounded by other cars and an ambulance right next to it. I knew something big had happened because they never keep that road closed like that for 48, I think it was more than 48 hours they kept that road shut. And there was lots of rumours going around about what had happened. I was trying to find out from people, what did you hear, what did you see? And a lot of people said that they just heard shouting and shots.
The police's handling of the aftermath of this event would prove disastrous. At first, they heavily implied that Duggan had fired on the police, as they announced that there was a bullet lodged in the radio of one of their officers.
There was definitely tension the next day. In fact, I think there was that the IPCC put out a statement saying that there'd been an exchange of fire. And because of what I heard the day before, I didn't believe that. And because of what I'd heard from people who said they'd seen what had happened, I didn't believe that. But there was certainly a lot of rumours flying about. I mean, rumours, you know, i.e. that he was executed, that he didn't draw a gun, that he was on the floor, you know, all these sorts of things. And these were being talked about in Tottenham. And, you know, people are upset about it.
Mark Duggan's family felt that they were not told enough by the police and the Independent Police Complaints Commission. The IPCC is responsible for investigating deaths in custody and took over the investigation into Mark's death the day after it happened.
This issue about deaths in custody has been played out for years, about the correct guidelines, the correct procedures, what you need to do to support a family. None of that seemed to apply in the case of Mark Duggan's family, and they were left without that support because it was unclear between the police and the IPCC who was going to provide that support and who was going to provide the information that clearly the family needed and the public also needed. And there was a clear information vacuum. And in that process of an information vacuum, other stories started to emerge.
The silence of the authorities allowed anger to build in the community and set events in motion. On Saturday, a peaceful protest led by Duggan's friends and family marched through the area to Tottenham's police station. They were trying to get the attention of the police and get answers as to exactly what circumstances led to Mark's death.
This family arrived there at 4 o'clock. They were there till 8 o'clock, still with no senior person coming to attend to them. And so that is a very patient family to be there for that length of time and still not get any information or answers. And, you know, in that moment when they turned away after all of that and went back home, the crowd was building a momentum.
I understand why they were angry when they were told that no one was coming out to talk to them. But it seemed that things exploded when a young 16-year-old girl approached the police line and was in their faces and was pushed over. And that's when the crowd started to get angry.
The crowd began to attack the police and set fire to their patrol vehicles. The situation was rapidly getting out of hand.
Why you want? Look. Hey, my man's doing things on behind us. Hey, look, only four and they were running forward. Push yo.
Well, by the time I got there, the mood was bad. I mean, there were about 40 kids with hoods up, masked faces, charging at the police. And they were calling the crowd to come with them. But as I said, most of the crowd were actually bystanders. They weren't there for trouble. And very few people did come forward with them. So it was mainly this group of 30 to 50 young people who kept charging at the police. The police weren't charging back. They were running forward 10 paces and running back. There were 15 of these riot officers standing between the crowd of 300 and the police station. And it just seemed really inadequate to me. I mean, I didn't feel like there was any control there.
A bus trying to come down the road was attacked and set alight. Businesses and homes were attacked, some broken into, some burnt. Tottenham's main high street became a scene of chaos that lasted long into the night. As time wore on, the rioters became more focused on looting than attacking the police. The rioters had realized that there simply weren't enough officers to stop them from breaking into businesses and taking whatever they wanted.
You just get the feeling that it was out of hand. You get the feeling that they could have stopped an awful lot of that violence. They could have stopped what went on to happen the following nights, because I'm sure that people were inspired to come out on the streets by the fact they'd seen people in Tottenham get away with it.
This building was so badly burnt that it had to be demolished the next day. It housed a carpet business downstairs, but there were 26 residential flats above it. It wasn't only businesses that suffered losses in this first night of troubles. On Sunday, word spread about how successful the looting had been, and by the evening, gangs of masked men were appearing in various areas of London, breaking into shops and taking all that they could carry. Clashes with police spread to more areas, more rocks were thrown, more cars burnt. The situation was escalating again, but this was nothing compared to Monday night. On Monday, arson, looting and violence spread to almost every area of London. The police put every man and woman at their disposal on the street, from the most experienced veterans to the newest recruits, but it was still not enough. Often the police were overwhelmed, but even when they had superior numbers, the looters would simply melt away into the alleyways and side streets, looking for easier targets to attack. For every riot that the police did manage to disperse, there seemed to be 5 more, bigger, more violent and more determined, that the boys in blue were powerless against. The unrest began to spread beyond London. England's second city, Birmingham, saw similar scenes, with other small-scale incidents in other English cities and towns. The most dramatic clashes were in the capital, though. The images that went round the world were of London burning.